How important was this to go as well as it seemingly did?
Yeah, I think it seemed to go flawlessly, and it's great to see. It's after 15 months, that's a pretty extended period for any vehicle to be offline. I think that a lot of that has to do with there's some regulatory checks that need to happen before a vehicle like this comes back online. But I also think that Blue Origin, sort of in their culture and DNA since the beginning, is very methodical and very slow, and so they want to get everything right. Like slow is smooth and smooth is fast has been their motto. And they used to actually stamp tortoises on the vehicle after successful flights. And so it's great to see it coming back on online. But I think, the company has big ambitions. They're going to need to step it up. And so, they're making some moves to sort of help make that happen.
And let's talk about those moves, because not only is there a proof point of the launch, the 24th as it was, reusable rocket doing well, but ultimately you're changing of the guard. Dave Limp goes from Amazon to become the helm of Blue Origin, and we hear from Jeff Bezos himself on certain podcasts saying we need to be more decisive. How are you going to see that become a reality?
Yeah, it's great to see, and I mean, look, you've got so interesting to see the juxtaposition between SpaceX and Blue Origin. Both of the companies were founded in 2002. Both of them have similar ambitions and actually similar funding. Bezos continues to invest heavily into Blue Origin with another, couple of $1 billion this year, which brings his total investment into the company, we estimate, to be somewhere around $10 billion, which is actually slightly more than what SpaceX has raised. But if you look at the two companies and what they've achieved, SpaceX dominates the launch market. They're launching almost 100 times this year. They're taking NASA astronauts to the space station, delivering cargo to the space station, launching high-profile classified missions for the Department of Defense, and they're in pole position to land NASA astronauts on the moon. Meanwhile, Blue Origin has New Shepard flying, and they have big aspirations and a lot of really interesting things that are in the works. But 20 years later, you'd like to see some of those things start to come online. It feels like Bezos is very confident that their larger orbital vehicle is going to come online next year. So next year should be pretty big for the company.
To that end, I mean, we remind our viewers you are indeed, through Space Angels, an investor in SpaceX. And ultimately, the business models are different, and there has been more of a focus on space tourism thus far coming from Blue Origin. But is there enough market share? Is there enough reward for this amount of players within the space, to pardon the pun?
Oh, sure. I mean, look, the world runs on space technology. GPS is the most visceral, sort of most personal example that you can give. It's the most successful space technology in existence. It's generated trillions of dollars in economic value and some of the largest venture outcomes we've ever seen. So the space economy and the opportunity here is much larger than just rockets and satellite hardware. But with the launch today, and that's what we're talking about, in launch, SpaceX makes it look really easy. That launch today was flawless, and it makes it look pretty easy. But of the 100+ launch companies that have raised $27 billion over the last 10 years, there are only 3 that are operational: SpaceX, Rocket Lab, and New Shepard, if you count it, is a suborbital vehicle. So there's actually only 2. So we'll see, if ULA, which is using Blue Origin's engines, comes online early next year. We'll see if New Glenn comes online next year. But we could use some competition here. Competition spurs lower costs and more entrants and more innovation. And, with only a couple of privately funded players, we could definitely use some more.
Is the venture capital there to back such new competition? Is it an international set of competition that we need to see?
Well, so we've been operating in space for decades, but it's only recently become a category for investment, really on the heels of SpaceX. Going from basically no private market activity, investment, or entrepreneurial activity, 10 years ago, on the heels of SpaceX, we've now seen $280 billion invested into 1,800 unique space companies over the last 10 years. So there is a lot more activity happening today, and most of that is coming from venture capital. So 3/4 of all of the rounds that have gone in that make up that $280 billion are from venture capital, and 2/3 of the capital is coming from venture capital. So, and a lot of that action is happening in the U.S., a significant portion of it, but this is an international play. Geopolitics is playing into this in a major way. Governments around the world are starting to awaken to the importance of space technology, and they are prioritizing its protection, knowing that it gives us positioning, geospatial intelligence, and intelligence about the movement of goods and activity on the Earth's surface, and also it's connecting us now through satellite connectivity through initiatives like Starlink, helping to keep the Ukrainians connected, for example, but connecting the remote parts of the planet as well. So this is critical national infrastructure, not just for the U.S., but for many countries, and we're seeing increased activity across the globe.